Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of my favorite parts of sound design, taking ordinary, everyday sounds like this and transforming them into epic cinematic hits like this. For this one, I grabbed some recordings of me hitting a rock tumbler, and with some unconventional processing and plugins, we're going to turn this into a trailer-ready hit. First, let's take a listen to the raw sounds I captured with the rock tumbler. They're pretty basic right now, but you will see that with some processing, this can become really massive. All right, now that I selected the sample that we want to work with, which raw sounds like this, I'll start with an EQ. In this case, I rolled off some of the higher frequencies above 7,000 hertz. But just remember, this always depends on your sample. Sometimes the high ends will sound great, sometimes it won't. So always let your ears guide you. All right, so next up, let's add some OTT compression. For the first pass, I brought the downwards compression to 0% and the upwards compression up to 144%. I then adjusted the knobs, the highs, the mids, and the lows until it felt right, and I kept the depth knob around to 30 to 40%. That's usually my sweet spot for when doing sound design. Then I added some saturation using Decapitator. I ended up using the E-style setting, and I left the rest of the controls as they were. This saturation plugin is just to add some grit and character to our sound. Let's go ahead and take a quick listen to what it sounds like with the EQ, OTT, and Decapitator so far. After that, I went in with another layer of OTT, but this time I flipped the approach. I brought up the downward compression and dialed down the upwards compression. This gives us a kind of different density and balance to the sound. Next, I wanted to bring in more weight to the sound, so I ended up using R-Bass by Waves. By the way, I do want to mention this is a great plugin to use if you're designing kicks. Anyway, I set the gain at about -2, the intensity around 6, and the frequency at about 60 hertz. But again, depending on your source, you might end up anywhere between 40 and 80 hertz. Let's take a quick listen and hear what this sounds like with all these plugins so far. Without, with. Then I brought out this plugin called Trans-X Multi by Waves. I added this plugin just to add more punchy transients to the sound. I started with the preset called More Punch and just adjusted the range and sensitivity until I felt it snappy enough. Alright, at this point I just threw on an adaptive limiter to boost the gain up a bit while keeping the hit under control. And with that we have our first process layer. Let me go ahead and play the sound so you can hear what it sounds like with all these plugins in the chain. So this is with, and this is without. Next, I bounced the hit in place and started adding extra processing. One of my favorite tools for this is Guitar Rig 6. I used a preset called Bad Impact, which is actually a bass guitar preset. I bypassed the reverb and tweaked the EQ to shape the tone a little more. Let me go ahead and just play what it sounds like with Guitar Rig 6. Without, with. Right after the Guitar Rig plugin, I wanted to carve out some more frequencies. I mostly took out frequencies in the low to low mid end and some in the 4K area. Then I decided to bring in Wormhole. This is one of my absolute go-to plugins for when I'm doing sound design. I used this cool preset called Strange Small Alien Voice, but I pulled down the effects blend so it didn't go too crazy. This added a really unique texture to the hit. Let me go ahead and play the sample so far with and without these three plugins. So this is the raw sample without. And this is the same sample with Guitar Rig, some more EQ, and using Wormhole. After that, I went with another Waves plugin called L3 Multi Maximizer just to push things forward and limit them a bit. Then I added some punch to the body using Ion Pusher by Infected Mushroom. I left the low end and the high end knobs alone and just pushed the body knob up for some extra weight. Then I added more saturation with Decapitator again, this time on the end style with a brighter tone. Then I used Black Hole to give it a massive reverb. Then another adaptive limiter to keep everything controlled. I want it to get a little crazier, so I bust another reverb using Valhalla Room. I left the reverb mode in Large Room, and I EQ'd out some of the lows and highs from the reverb tail. Let me go ahead and play this sound with and without the plugin so you can hear what we have so far. So this is without, and this is with. For the subgroup, I stacked on another L3 Multi-Maximizer, some EQ to tame more of that harshness around 4K, a bit of soft clipping, And then finally, one more adaptive limiter just to push the overall gain while keeping the ceiling at about minus 0.1 dB. And for the master stereo track, I used OTT again for some upward compression, another L3 multi-maximizer, some side low-cut EQ to control the subs, another soft clipper, and one final adaptive limiter to lock everything in. As you can see, I pushed up the gain and just kept the ceiling at minus 0.1. So again, let me play this sound with all the plugins bypassed and then with all of them on so you can hear the before and after. This is the before, and this is the after. So yeah, I know that seems like a lot of processing and that I'm stacking some of the same plugins multiple times, but I feel that from everything I've learned about sound design, it's all about experimenting with unconventional methods, trying different plugin chains and seeing what happens. Sometimes the weirdest combinations give you the most epic results. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. And also let me know in the comment section below what everyday sound you'd like for me to transform next. All right, thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.